and welcome to this episode of Own the Journey, where we get to travel around the world and speak with amazing people. And today we get the gift of speaking with Sean Kouplen, the Chairman and CEO of Region Bank. Sean, thanks for being with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah. So you have an amazing history, an amazing story. Our viewers haven't gotten to hear all that yet. So tell us just a little bit about how you got here and how you landed in banking.
Okay, so I grew up on a farm in a very small town south of Tulsa, Oklahoma called Beggs. Beggs has about 1,000 people. I had 42 in my graduating class. My grandfather and father both raised Hereford cattle. My dad, when I was getting ready to graduate from college, informed me that I needed to go get a real job, that there wasn't enough income on the farm to make it work for another generation. And so I drove back over to Oklahoma State University in Stillwater, terrified. I had no work experience, no nothing. Through a wild turn of events, our university president at OSU actually helped me get into the banking business.
Really?
And very quickly, we were at a dinner. He had invited me to attend this Board of Regents dinner. We were sitting around a table. This right after my dad had said, hey, you need to go get another job. Dr. Halligan was just trying to get me to talk to the Board of Regents that were there. And he said, you know, Sean, I've been meaning to ask you, what are you going to do when you graduate from college? And I didn't know. And I was too embarrassed to say I didn't know. And the guy sitting to my left had a nameplate that said Bruce Benbrook, Stock Exchange Bank, Woodward, Oklahoma. So I thought, well, that sounds good. I'll just say banking. So I did. So I said, well, you know, I've actually been thinking about going into banking. And everybody around the table said, what? We had no idea. And I said, oh, yeah, it's a very recent career decision, which it was. And that's literally how I got into banking. He had a friend who owned a group of banks in Oklahoma City. They hired me in as an intern. They hired me back. 2 years later, I'm president of a bank. 10 years later, we had the opportunity to buy a bank, and here we are today. Now I'm 49 years old.
Yeah, well, what an incredible story. So you're literally sitting at the table and you make the decision, the recent decision.
Yes.
And now look at you.
Exactly.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So your story is awesome because you were the president of a bank and then you decided to buy this bank, Region Bank, and at the time it had 72 million in assets, and now you're over 1.3 billion.
1.4 now.
1.4.
Yeah,
wow.
It really grows every single month. It's pretty remarkable.
So what's the key? What has facilitated that kind of success?
Purchasing the bank was really the function of a relationship. The family that had owned it were real good friends of mine, and they were actually looking for a president, and I recommended that maybe they ought to actually thinking about selling the bank because it had really been struggling. And they initially said no, and then called me and said, we think you're right, we think we should sell the bank, and we want to sell it to you.
Oh.
So I was 34 and put a group of investors together, bought the bank. In April Fool's Day of 2008, immediately prior to the mortgage crisis. And so I will tell you that 2 or 3 years was brutal.
I'm sure.
About the toughest of my life. Once we made it through that, and we only made it through because of a miracle from the Lord, and if we have time, I'd love to share it. But once we made it through, we had learned a lot. I felt like I was a better leader, better banker. I had the opportunity actually to buy out a partner in 2013 and began really running the organization in the way that I had always dreamed of. And so to answer your initial question, culture is very important to us, just as it is to you and your company. You know, trying to treat people with love and with genuine care. We now hire the best. I was telling a group today, I wish I had done that years ago. I started in 2014 just paying what it took to hire in the best talent, and that has been huge. We are a business bank, so really all we do is business banking, and that niche and becoming known for that niche, I think, has been very, very important. And then we use a management operating system and have for years called Traction. Traction,
Yeah.
EOS
Yeah.
operating system.
We love that.
You guys use it as well?
We do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you can appreciate it. It really keeps everybody on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
And we are Traction diehards, and I think that has been enormously helpful. Truly, I think at the end of the day, and I'm really not just saying this organization, much like yours, has just been really blessed. I mean, you just can't, it really is not logical. We made a decision about 10 years ago that we were going to fully turn this organization over to God. And I don't feel like I'm the boss. I feel like He is the boss, and we try to follow His direction. And when we do that, it's just pretty amazing what He has done here. So I think
special.
we've had 27% annualized growth in an industry that grows 3%.
Yeah, that's unbelievable.
And I'm not that smart, I can assure you. So I think that we've just have great people just like you do, have great blessing, and it's really been beyond anything I ever could have imagined growing up on the farm in Beggs, Oklahoma.
Well, congratulations. It's quite a story, and I know that you've impacted just hundreds of people's lives, not only within the bank, but one of the things that's very special to you is you have a daily devotional call where you invite people to come and join. Talk to us about that and how that's woven into the culture of the organization.
You know, about I'm going to say 12 or 13 years ago, I went through really a discipleship group. It's called The Journey. It's very, very popular here in Oklahoma and Northwest Arkansas. And I learned really the value of abiding with Jesus, that just this concept of trying to kind of remain with Him. And so I started getting up really early and spending more time in prayer. Well, one morning when I was in prayer, I got this distinct, and I mean, I'm talking crystal clear, leading that I needed to start a devotional for our team. And I informed God during that prayer that you can't do that anymore. I said, I think this must be 1960s, God, because in the 2020 you can't really do that anymore. And I'd be driving down the road and I'd hear, you need to start that devotional. And I'd be eating dinner, start the devotional. Take a shower, start the devotional. Whatever I'm doing. I mean, it was on me all the time.
Just go.
So I'll never forget the day that I announced in our employee meeting. I was petrified. I can't even put into words how scared I was that we were going to do this. So I remember we wrapped up the meeting. It was our monthly meeting. And at the end, I said, okay, guys, that's the last thing. Tomorrow morning, I really feel led to start a daily devotional. Now, this is just me. It's not the organization. You're not required to attend. It's all voluntary, but this is a number, and I'll email it out and let you know if you want to call in, if you're at one of our outlying locations, or if you're here, just come into the boardroom where we are located today. So the next day comes, I have 7 people. 7 people came into the board room. We probably had 100 people, 100 employees at the time. Nobody was on the line. So I was like, well, that's underwhelming. I'm like, this was a lot of build-up and that 7 included me. So it really was just 6 other people. I was like, well, that's a lot of build-up. Well, I got back to I did the devotional. I was over-prepared. And I got back to my office and had a bunch of emails from people saying, we tried to call in, but we couldn't get in. And I had a typo in what I had sent out. No. So I put the wrong number. So the next day we went to like 70 people, from 7 to 70. And then they started inviting their friends. And all of a sudden I noticed, and without getting into a lot of detail, we were maxing out on our lines. We use Uber Conference, and we were maxed out. And so I'd go buy some more lines, and then we'd max out again, and I'd buy some more. And now it's been I think it's been 6 years that we've been doing this. And I used to do it every day. I lead on Mondays and Tuesdays, and I have other leaders that lead the other days of the week. We're 365 days a year. We do it every day. And we've had over 200,000 callers into the devotional.
Unbelievable.
The typical day will be 40 to 50,000. All 50 states, 4 foreign countries. It's unbelievable. It's like the devotional is like the largest church in America. Like if you add the people that call in, and it's very, very simple for those that are watching. We use the Jesus Calling devotional. I just read that day's devotional, read the scripture basis for the devotional, and then spend maybe 9 or 10 minutes just talking about whatever we feel like the Lord placed on our heart on how to apply it. That's it. That's the full. It's never been advertised. It doesn't even have a name. It is just the daily devotional, and that many people have called in.
Well, that is absolutely amazing.
It is.
Yeah, and that's turned into even a separate organization that you're now helping to lead, a website and a book and everything. Tell us about that.
Yes. Well, there are a lot of tentacles here. So
Yeah.
shortly after that, we started Faith in Business. Again, I felt this is exactly how it happened. In prayer, you ought to start a faith and business meeting for leaders to come together and be encouraged in living out their faith. So this was one morning. That very same day at lunch, I'm with a friend of mine, actually at the same place that we went to lunch, or went to breakfast, and Chuck Wilson at lunch says, Sean, I've been thinking you ought to start a morning breakfast we used to have this great morning breakfast for business leaders and blah, 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 and it stopped, and you're the perfect person to start it. And I was like, well, that was quick. That's about 4 hours old. And so we started that, and that's now expanded into all of our markets. And so Oklahoma City, Springfield, Bartlesville, Tulsa, we have a monthly breakfast where we have hundreds of people attend and hear a leader speak on how they integrate their faith into their business. So that's been exciting.
Yeah.
And then, and I'll be much briefer on this one, 94X is a movement that a team and I just launched last Friday. And 94X is 160 divided by 1.7. And 160 is the number of hours that our employees work for us in a month. And 1.7 is the average number of hours that they go to church. And the meaning behind the number, which I feel like was given to me on a plane flight, of all things, is that our employees, we have them in our care 94 times more than most of them will go in the walls of a church. And so as a leader, if I don't show them love, and in particular the love of Jesus, they may not ever see it. And so the book is about that. It's about the story behind 94X, what it looks like to bring this into your company. We feature our company, but also 5 or 6 other companies as well. We are rolling out in about a week an online community of the same, for the same purpose, as well as roundtables where groups of 7 business leaders would gather to discuss one of the principles of a 94X company and how they can implement that in their life. So the Lord continues to amaze me. The book in its first week went to number 32 on Amazon.
Holy cow.
It's at number 24 today, and I don't know what he has planned. All I know is it was a very, very clear leading, and I know that it is the purpose of my life. I know undoubtedly that I have been prepared. Everything I've done has been to lead up to this movement that we believe will go global.
Yeah, it's obviously headed there. Well, thanks for doing it. I think it's an amazing service to the world.
Pleasure.
Yeah. So there's so many things. Oh my gosh. So leaning into it, I think one of the big challenges that we have in business today is and I'm sure that you recognize this, that you see people struggling.
Yeah.
Yeah, just that every day they come in to work and there's something at home, whether it's family stuff or health stuff or parents, maybe health issues there, financials, whatever it is, and it's hard to do that. And I think that so many people across America, in particular, have lost some hope, if you will, in the government, in the school systems, and sometimes even in churches. And so I think what you're doing is special because the 94X methodology is such that we have the opportunity to serve people and to potentially be the only solid ground that they've got to stand on in the world at any given time, and give them a place and a meaning.
No question. And one of the pillars, one of the principles of the 94X movement is relationship. And we are just now implementing this, so I don't want to portray that we have it all figured out. But there is a company in Lubbock, Texas, called Beatonbow Companies. It's a home builder, and they've expanded into other businesses, and they call it relational leadership. And what they do, and we're working on this. It's hard,
sure.
Really hard when you're growing fast and everybody's busy. But their managers meet with their employees for an hour a week, and they cannot talk about work. They talk about whatever that employee needs, and the employee leads the conversation. And they literally can't talk about work unless that's what the employee wants to talk about. And the things they learn and the way that they can support their employees is unbelievable. So I had a little experience with this. I meet with every new employee after they've been here for 90 days. So I met with a young lady that we had hired from a bank here in town, and she's very impressive and very bright, dressed to the nines, comes in my office, and I said, we'll call her Kathy.
Okay.
So I said, Kathy, I said, tell me your story, because I always ask them 3 questions. What's their story? Tell me about them. Are we living the core values that we say we're living? You've been here 90 days. Is it baloney or is it real? And what can we do better? What's the one thing? You've been here long enough. What is the thing that we don't do very well? It's always fascinating what you find.
I'm sure. I love that.
So I asked her about her story, and she says, oh, you don't want to hear my story. And I said, oh, yeah. I said, that's my favorite part of these meetings. I said, I do want to hear your story. Where'd you grow up? Blah, blah, blah. So she tells me about this life where she grows up in West Tulsa, which is a poor area of town. Her father left when they were little. Her mom is an alcoholic. She took care of her siblings all the way through, tried to go to college, but couldn't figure out how to provide for the family and go to college. She's working in the mall, and somebody from a bank met her and invited her to come in and apply. She ends up being a teller. She gets promoted a couple of times, and then somebody had told her that a friend of hers, I think, had worked here and told her that Regent was like a family, and she had never had a family, so she applied to come to work here. And so we hire her, and I thought when you just looked at her, and she'd come over from a big bank, I thought, well, she's a private school person, went to private college, upwardly mobile. We're kind of the next step on her way, to move up not at all. So furthermore, she says, and I just got married recently, and my new husband's brother has had a run-in with DHS, and they took away his 17 and 30 35-month-old and gave them to us. So now she's
my
newly
goodness.
married, potty training babies when she never even had babies, trying to find daycare for these kids, and just trying to survive. So she's like, I've had a lot going on. So one of the things we always do around here is we always say, just how can we support you? Because it's like we view ourselves like a splint. Like if you break your finger, the splint's not going to heal your finger, but it supports the finger while it is healed, while God does the healing. So I said, how can I support you? And she says, would you pray with me? To which I broke down crying. I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, I would love to pray with you. And then I said, well, how else can I support you? And so we were able to let her work from home, help her find daycare. I had been in state government for a period of time, so I was able to help her find some resources. There were all these things we could do to help once we knew what was going on.
Yeah.
But I used to be the one that would say, hey, everybody, we need to learn, we got to compartmentalize. I know you've got problems in your life, but when you walk through that door, those problems got to stay there. And when you come in, if you bring in your problems, it's just going to cause more problems, because then you're going to do a bad job. That was such bad leadership. Because as you just said, people, they bring their whole lives to work.
Yes.
You can't leave the 17 and 35-month-old and all this and just forget about it and pretend it's not. You're taking phone calls, you're dealing with all that stuff. So when we opened up and realized, you know what? We just need to love people where they are and support them where they are. Honestly, it probably feels more like a church than anywhere that I've ever been in my life. So it's relationships are very, very powerful to us.
I love that. And I love the way that you use the analogy of the splint, because I think that is so true. Because we can't solve everyone's problems, but we can certainly help and support them through those problems. And when we run businesses that truly are focused on people, then we have options and flexibility and capabilities at our disposal that, for whatever reason, became this bad idea. And so again, you're kind of breaking the mold and helping people to navigate through it.
Yeah.
So a couple of the things that you said that I want to touch on there. One was how challenging it was to first take a step of bringing faith into the business, and that not being like it was the 60s God and not the 2000s God.
Right.
When you first made that announcement, other than the phone calls coming in and those things, that it had to have an impact on the culture. There had to be chatter. How was that inside the organization?
I don't really know, because they were talking about me, so I don't really know what they were talking about at the time. The result of the culture now, you can't put into words. Let me give you one more example. And this stuff, if you had told me that this was even possible within a workplace, I would have said no way. But here's another one. This is much more recent, so this may be within the last 6 or 7 months. I get this feeling that we need to be a praying organization. Okay, the prayer is very powerful, and why aren't we bringing that into the workplace? So now I've learned. Now I don't fight it anymore. Now I just listen and do whatever I'm supposed to do.
Yes, sir.
So I show up at work, and I just type out an email to everybody. I send it to all of we have a couple hundred employees, and I send it out to all of them, and I say, hey, I'm really feeling led. I'm sure they're like, oh my God, how many leadings can Sean have, in one lifetime? But I say, I'm really feeling led that we should be a praying organization. And so if anybody out there is passionate about praying for others, whether it's employees or clients or community or whomever, let me know. I'd like to put together again, voluntary. It's all voluntary. You can't force anything on anybody. We don't want to do that. Voluntary prayer team. 30 people. first day. And it's been 30, 40, 50 ever since. And we could spend 2 hours here talking about that. I have our internal auditor leads the prayer team. Now, where does that happen?
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
That's highly unusual. She is amazing. They meet every Wednesday morning, virtually or in person, depending upon where you are, to pray for our list. And we have had the most unbelievable miracles. So we have these little prayer lambs that we take to people when we pray for them. Now we have our customers reaching out to pray for them and for their family. And I mean, the list is long and it can get overwhelming,
Sure.
you know. And so what happens, the way we get the requests is people just, and I would mention it to your viewers, anybody can send a request to prayerteam@regent.bank. It's just all one word, prayerteam@regent.bank, and it goes to all of us that are on the list immediately, and we all commit to pray immediately. And I cannot tell you, one little girl comes to my mind in particular that is going to make me cry, but she was done. The doctors had given up on her, and she was in Oklahoma City at Children's Hospital, and 4 of our prayer team members who work at our bank over there went there and prayed with her in the hospital. She didn't even have any relation to us. I mean,
Yeah.
She was like a person that somebody knew, and we had a picture of her holding this prayer lamb with a blanket on, and she's at home right now, healed.
Oh my gosh.
It is
Unbelievable.
I could give you 50 of these. It is the most unbelievable. So when I say it has changed, it's changed my life. I mean, it isn't, I mean, I'm sure the other 199 people are changed, but I just watch it and I'm just like, man, this is so we don't really have turnover, you know, to speak of.
Yeah.
People either really love our culture or are really repelled by it, you know.
And you know quickly, I'm
And
sure.
you know, we know immediately. They typically don't even apply. Most people know kind of who we are and what we stand for. And you know, some people think it's too much kumbaya for them. I'm like, hey, we are what we are. We're not going to change, you know. And so you either fit or you don't. And if you don't, that's perfectly fine. And so it's been pretty drastic.
Well, I think the lesson lots of lessons in that for sure, but I think one of the most powerful lessons that our viewers can appreciate is courage and leadership. I mean, it's hard. I mean, you mentioned it, and I think there's a lot of people that don't know that about CEOs and business leaders, that when you walk into certain situations, you're nervous, you're scared, and you have to power through certain things, and you just have to lead with courage and confidence that the things that you're doing are the right things for the right reasons, and that creates incredible results.
We had an experience with our core values. So we have a one and done core value policy, which is if you break one of them, you get a warning, but then if you do it again, you get alternate employment. And so we've made this big deal.
I love that.
You get to go elsewhere.
Congratulations.
So I mean, our exec team literally physically stacked hands and said, we will live by this. We will. It wasn't 3 days later that my top producer that made us $1 gazillion broke the core value twice. And the question is, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, are you going to be a hypocrite? Yeah, are you going to live by it or not? And we had to let him go. And it turned out fine. We were fine. But yes, there's gut checks along the way. And you just got to, like you said, you got to lead with courage. I just said it at a deal today. You can't lead scared. If you're going to be a leader, you can't lead scared.
You just got to do it. You got to lean into it. That's so good. Well, you mentioned that you were in state leadership as well. You're involved with a gazillion, different organizations and community organizations. Talk to us just a little bit about the time that you spent. So it was Secretary of Commerce and Workforce Development, right? That had to be a little bit of a different role from being a banker and some of the other things. I mean, you led through some turbulent times, and you brought over 100 businesses into Oklahoma. Talk to us about that. That is just astounding.
my real close friend was elected governor for Oklahoma. So that's really the way all this happened. It was, and I wasn't aspiring to be in state government. He got elected into state government and then asked me if I would help out. And so our board agreed to allow me to do both. I still led the bank and was Commerce Secretary, and then he later added in Workforce Development, which is 100 times harder than Commerce, just for the record. That was an amendment that we will talk about someday. But our experience was wild. We had about a year. I was in there almost 3 years, and we had about a year that was really fun. I mean, we were reimagining government, and we were all business people coming in, and we didn't have any of the old baggage, politically, and I mean, I brought in great people. We tackled a lot of issues, workforce development and recruitment, and how to kind of market and package the state, and we had many great efforts. And then about a year in is when COVID hit, and so the last year and a half was survival, and survival for businesses.
Oh, absolutely.
So I can distinctly remember one night being in my office. I had called Angela and I was like, I've got to stay here till I figure this out. I was singularly tasked with coming up with the business relief program for the state of Oklahoma. So we got X number of dollars from the federal government, $29 million, I think it was, from the federal government, and the question was, how are we going to divvy that up? And so we have our own clients suffering, through the bank, and so we're trying to do PPP loans, till all hours of the night, every night, and then I'm trying to figure this out, and then I get tasked with figuring out what's an essential versus a non-essential business. So that's my singular decision, delegated by my friend. So I mean, it was wild. Like the whole time it was exhilarating. We were runners up for Tesla. So we had a big push where Tulsa and Austin were the two finalists to get the Gigafactory for Tesla. And even though we didn't get it, we got, worldwide exposure. I mean, we were on so many different, the governor and I were on many different, like these news shows that you watch, like all of a sudden you're on there with the guy. It's like, wow, this is just, the whole thing was around hanging out with Elon Musk 3 different times. So parts of it were just exhilarating. Parts of it were just grueling, because if you think about like the legislature is the equivalent of your board of directors in essence, but there's a lot of them, and they don't always have the same motives or never have the same viewpoints, and so you're trying to kind of make them happy, so you get the funding that you need, and then you're trying to do your day-to-day, which is really overseeing 36 different agencies is what I had.
Oh my goodness.
And so it was wild. So I learned a lot. I now have an immense respect for government officials and what they go through and how hard it is. Now I know a lot more about government than I did before, and I have no great desire to go back there anytime soon, and probably ever in my life. I've learned I'm much more of a private sector person. It's just simpler. We're all rowing in the same direction. I'm not sure that you don't have greater impact. I think government is very important, but it's just kind of antiquated for the world we live in, and so I'm much happier in my office here at the bank.
Just take it. But as a part of all that, you were successful in bringing in
a lot of businesses. Yeah,
a lot of businesses. But what do people in economic development need to know? I mean, what was it that made that happen? That's, I try to help out in Springfield and make an impact, and it just feels like a battle all the time. It's tough.
Yeah, well, it's tough. It's just tough, particularly when your neighbor is Texas, and so every time you get one on the hook, they pull out a big check and hand it over. So it is tough. Our success has been more in small and mid-sized companies that kind of fall below the Texas radar. We did have a big announcement recently with Panasonic. Looks like they're coming to Oklahoma as long as we can do certain things. So I think that will be good. But all in all, what happened was we just needed to perfect our messaging. And our messaging was freedom to run your business. It was really that simple. It was just we opened back up early. We never really shut down. We had non-essential businesses, but they were very few and far between. So most everybody went through COVID uninterrupted. And so we just learned that our target, no different than your company, you just got to know your target. Our target was somebody that wanted that. They didn't have to have fear of whether their business was going to be shut down, which is still the case in many parts of the country. And so our niche, which again I fully contribute to the Lord above because it came to me one morning in prayer, was the idea of doing marketing to 5 states that are the most anti-business. Okay, so we had our team go in and do all this analysis, and between legislation and regulation and taxation, certain states are just not good for business. And so that's who we started marketing to. So we began putting billboards out on their main interstates, and we'd send direct mail pieces to certain types of businesses. We have certain industries that are very prevalent here, and we learned that businesses want to go to businesses. They don't want to be the first aerospace or ag or whatever company to come into town. So we just marketed to them. Well, it happened that those same 5 anti-business states were the worst during COVID. They were the ones that shut everybody down during COVID. And we had already been marketing to them for 18 months. And so that's when they all came in. So that's really how we got them.
And now you're employing hundreds, if not thousands of people in Oklahoma as a result.
Now we don't have enough workers. Now it's the opposite of
dealing with a
problem.
different challenge. Well, you mentioned that you were staying late one night and you had to call Angela, your wife, and say that you had to stay at work. But that's kind of the exception now in your life. Tell us a little bit about the balance. I mean, everything that you're juggling, a $1 billion plus bank and 200 employees, but yet you're home.
You know, my learning has been that we have to put first things first. We have to. And I didn't always do that. I was a workaholic. I was trying to build my career. I had some experiences with our family when my oldest daughter was very young, where I was worried that I was going to lose my marriage because of my work habits, and I wasn't doing anything wrong, but I wasn't a good husband. I just overworked. And so I made the decision years ago that at 6:30, I don't work anymore. Period. Now we may go to an event where Angela goes with me. You know, we've shared a lot of events here, and so obviously we're going to be at those. But in terms of always going to a chamber function or United Way or this or that, I just decided it just wasn't worth it. And so the rule is, my own rule for me, is that at 6:30, the phone is shut off, plugged in, put away, and it's family time. It may be coaching baseball, which I love to do. It may be just hanging out with the family, whatever the case may be, but I'm not going to work. So it didn't matter. The governor used to get after me. Sean, I need to talk to you, and you're never available. I'm not going to be available after 6:30. That evening was very unique because I was under the gun, and she knew it, and there wasn't anybody else that could do it. I couldn't delegate it. But I am 100% about the fact that we can balance family and being executives. And I don't care how big the company is. I don't care. Honestly, in my view, it's gotten easier as we've gotten better.
Yeah.
I've got better talent, and you can afford it. And so that's not an excuse. We just have to make that decision, which has been wonderful for me and my family.
Yeah.
I have a lot of shortcomings, but that is thankfully not one of them any longer.
Yeah,
So.
well, that's amazing. I think there's a lot for us all to learn in that, because in today's world of always being connected, I mean, it's hard for me to check out, and I'm working crazy hours, and it's nothing for my kids to like, Dad, you working or not working, or that's rough.
It is, and I had a moment where I used to have a huge loan portfolio. So when we started, we didn't have any people, so we didn't have any choice. And so we all wore 6 or 8 hats, and one of mine was I was a big producer and brought in a lot of our business, and I thought I had to keep it. I thought the reason they were here was because of my relationship to them, and if I hand that off to someone else, they're going to leave. Mm-hmm. And I just had this scarcity mentality, honestly, for much of my life. And so one day, I was just beat down. I just could not. I had loan files all over my floor. I couldn't stay caught up on any of my work. I just felt totally miserable. And I just decided, I'm done. I'm not going to be a loan officer anymore. We've gotten to the point where I need to be the president of the bank and the CEO. And so in one day, I divvied out like 520 clients in one day. And I just cranked it out and said, hey, because of the size of the bank, I'm going to need to move into this role. And my client said, praise the Lord. You are the worst loan officer we have ever had. We love you as a person. We came here. We're glad we can call you if we need you. But oh my God, please give us to somebody else. We've been thinking about leaving anyway because you never get our renewal done on time, and you never do this and you do that.
Hilarious.
So I learned other people can do it.
Yeah.
Other people can do the work. It doesn't have to be me all the time.
Yeah.
And and I know we may have clients who call after hours, and maybe they're frustrated that they get my voicemail. But honestly, now that people understand that's my boundary, they respect that.
Yeah.
I've never really had any issue whatsoever.
That's awesome.
You just gotta I just think we just have to set those boundaries. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, setting the boundaries, and I think your lesson in thinking that we have to do more than we have to do, and understanding that sometimes we think we're good and we're not, or that we think we're the reason, and we're not really that good sometimes. And other people can do it better. And
I know.
That's how the business grows. You surround yourself by rock stars.
I know. Well, if you ever watch Undercover Boss, the CEOs never know how to do anything. They always ship us out into the market, and we can't, bake a sandwich, or we can't run the cash register. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. So I'm kind of the opinion that there's a few things that I do well, and I really just need to do those things. And then other people need to do the other stuff.
Yeah.
And when you do that, it builds them up. It makes for a great team.
Yeah.
It's just a better environment all the way around.
Yeah. Well, I think your humility is amazing, because obviously you're good at what you do, and
it's well deserved. I can assure you. Get to know me for a while.
Yeah.
You'll see.
Oh, that's awesome. So talk to us just a little bit about, you've been involved with lots of businesses over the years, and you see the opportunity to invest in businesses and help businesses out, and what makes a good business or not make a good business. And, what are the lessons that you've taken away from just seeing things like they've got it, it's going to blow up, it's going to be awesome, and the situations where it's like, no, I'm out, this is a bad idea.
I am very entrepreneurial, so there's kind of one side of me that is a small business investor and owner, and then the other side is the bank CEO. And the first thing I had to learn was that the two are very different, because we make a 1% net margin on the bank side, so the risk that I can take over here as an entrepreneur is not the same as the risk we should be taking as the bank. So that was rule number one for me. In terms of how to invest or buy a business, it's really become kind of an art over the years. I will only buy or invest in companies that are proven. I would rather pay a higher price to buy a company that is consistent and has had consistent performance over time. You've obviously got to look at the role of technology and can it make the business obsolete. I look at concentration risk, and so a company can be really, really good, but if they just have a few customers and those customers walk, then you're in trouble. We look at it's kind of like the Warren Buffett model. You look at the quality of leadership. We have a rule where the businesses the CEOs cannot call me from Monday to Friday or they're fired. So they have to have very strong leadership within those companies. And so it's really not that different. I always tell everybody, if you gave me $20 and you wanted me to pay you back, you're going to go through a thought process. Will Sean pay us back? Will he pay me back that $20? Does he have the character? Has he done it in the past? Does he have the means to pay it back? It's all kind of the same stuff. It's really not rocket science per se, but I think it's very important to be disciplined and to just not deviate. I have deviated. This is part of the reason for my intense humility is that I have deviated. I have lost a lot of money when I have deviated, and so we've learned what's tried and true, and thank goodness my wife will keep me, I'll come home, I got this great deal, and she's like, oh yeah, Sean, I've heard that 20 times, let's stick with what we know and stick with what we're good at, and we've had pretty good success that way.
Success. It all comes back. I mean, I hear you saying oftentimes when you're evaluating the business, you're investing in people. You need to know the people that you're investing in. And are they going to take care of the business and take care of their people, and are they making good choices?
Yeah, no doubt about it. Absolutely. No doubt about it. The one thing I would tell everyone out there, because your viewers are probably like us, never ever, you see me, cameras, never ever sign up to be the managing partner in an investment group. I don't care how good the investment looks and how good of friends you're partners with. Money does amazing things to people. And at the end of the day, the operating agreement just says, if you don't make the money in the capital call, you get diluted, which is what everybody wants in a bad deal. So I have some very real experience with this. And so I will save you all millions of dollars if you will not do this. Never, ever do that. Either my experience has been passive investments are tough. You're not investing enough to where you can keep track of it and really focus on it. Ours has always been, we've always been better off just buying all of whatever it is and going all in, and those have worked out pretty well.
I love that. Yeah, well, I love that. Well, that kind of leads us to wrapping things up. We could talk for another hour, I'm sure. You've got some amazing stories I would love to hear. But in addition to the advice of never being the managing partner of an investment group, what other advice would you share with people?
That's the best advice.
That's the best.
No, I've got others. Yeah. I was actually just thinking about this driving back here from a meeting a while ago. One, I think, is you have to remember that everyone is of equal importance in the company. Everyone.
I love it.
We have different roles. They don't want me on the teller line. I don't really want them running the board meeting. But we are all of the same importance, and there should never be any delineation otherwise. Two, I think it's very, very important to be generous. You know, we can talk a good talk, and we love you, and you know, we value you. But then when you're stingy, and you hoard all the profits, and nobody gets to enjoy any of that, people can see right through that. So I think it's very, very important to be generous. And then probably the breakthrough for us that occurred several years back was I just really got an epiphany to do exactly what you were doing here with this video series, which is to stop selling and just start helping people. You know, nobody wants to be sold to, but everybody wants to be helped. And so we changed our entire business model to be one of resources. How can we help you? You know, I'm probably going to do something similar to this. This is a great idea on a very local basis. It's a great idea. Any way to help people be more successful. The byproduct of them doing business with you is that always happens. You don't even have to ask. I mean, it is just when they know you care. So I think having a culture of sincere love and caring for your employees, for your clients, for your community, that can overcome a whole lot of weaknesses, which I certainly have those. And it's amazing what love can do. You know, Jesus said the greatest of these is love, and I think there's a reason he said that.
Yeah, awesome. Sean, thank you very much. We appreciate you being with us today.
My pleasure.
Congratulations.
Thank you.